Yo, yo, yo!
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 86 of Heelanhammer. On today's show, we travel back to the future in our new Time Tunnel segment. We discuss internet rumours regarding a 9th edition reset, review the latest White Dwarf, and chat about character deployment. All this and more on today's Heelanhammer. Hi, Wayne, how's it going?
It's all right.
Yeah.
He sounded a bit special then.
He's down with my enthusiasm, are you? Yeah. No, it's good. So, I suppose this is almost take two. Well, I don't know if we should give our production secrets, but as I was raging about it on Twitter, this is the second
It's
time.
no secret.
No, this is the second time we've recorded this show, thanks to an awesome, let's just say, schoolboy error is probably the best way to put it. Me plugging a lead into the wrong hole.
The right cable in the wrong hole.
Yes, correct. But so hopefully this one's made it to you in much better condition. So, okay, so we should probably give a shout out to our sponsors straight off. So there's Og Games, that's oggames.co.uk. Obviously Og, as we like to refer to it on some of our adverts. And in homage to that, the June offer code for this month is obviously Og. So that's obviously the word followed by OG. It doesn't matter what case. Spend £30 or more on anything and you get a hobby kit for just £30. Now, a hobby kit is 50 magnets, a set of Games Workshop modular trays, 3 lots of A4 flexo metal sheeting and A4 magnetic sheeting to match, and a can of Army Painter Black spray paint undercoats for just £30. Bit of a bargain. So, Wayne, for those who've never heard of it, can you just explain how this magnetic sort of hobby kit works?
Right, there's two ways of doing it. If you've got the sheets, you put the metal sheets, the flexo metal on the movement trays. And then you put the magnetic sheet on, cut the squares. What I usually do, if I'm doing like 20mm bases, I'll cut 20mm strips, and then I'll stick, because they're sticky back, both sheets are sticky back. So then you peel the back off it, put as many models as you can with a slight little gap between each one, and then I cut them. So obviously they're all oversized, and I trim them with a new craft knife, nice sharp blade, trim them to match. And then obviously then once they go onto the movement tray. If it's plastic models, you can literally hold the tray upside down. They won't fall off.
Brilliant. Now, we should say as well, if you have a hard time picturing this, you can look at our special section of the forum, the Saucy, our premium content section, and there's a guide that has stood the test of time there by regular guest spotter, if you like, Russ Veal, and he goes through it. There's pictures on there and a step-by-step guide of how to magnetise your army using this kind of kit. Well, in actual fact, using this kit. So check that out if you're interested. And one other quick shout before we move on to the main topics of today. 22nd and 23rd of June, the Wandsworth War, which has been run by Old Games. It's a 2-day event. Well, it's not really a 2-day. It's 2 one-day events. So you can enter one, you can enter two. It's £10 for 1 day or £17.50 for the 2. It's the latest South Coast Grand Tournament comp pack, which is probably out by the time you listen to this. And the details will all be on the one place where all the UK tournaments are, which is the Warhammer forum, warhammer.org.uk. So go and check that out if you're interested. If we were more, if London was easier for us, I think we'd probably be tempted with that kind of stuff just to nip down for a day. It does look like a good laugh, and the feedback's always good from them. So yeah, check that out. So on to the news.
Coming to you live from Portsmouth, this is the Heelanhammer Network News.
Okay, Wayne, so White Dwarf is out today, isn't it? Well, not out today, it's been out, in fact. Yeah. And it's full, absolutely packed to the brim of all these fantasy releases we've got to talk about, isn't it? No?
Sorry, I was waiting for the tumbleweed to go through the studio then.
Well, by the time this gets edited, there might be some, you never know. So yes, not a load.
It's the Eldar release, isn't it?
It is.
I've never been that keen on Eldar, so it's kind of...
No, see, I quite like him, so I was reasonably excited about this.
They look really, really camp.
Well,
which is okay if you're into camp, but I'm not. So
the only thing I looked at them, and there's a lot of Wraith Guard. For those of you who aren't 40Kers or haven't seen White Dwarf, they've got helmets that have got no eyes on them, and always think like they should have eyes painted on the. I want to do an army that's just got.
They would look silly, though.
Yeah, big blue eyes. I don't know if any of you are Doctor Who fans, but there's this episode where they were in Pompeii, I think it was, and there's all these like women that have eyes painted on their hands, and when they put them over their eyes, their face, it looks like. There's these big, like massive eyes. I think just do that, paint them big eyelashes, and then
you
there
said
you go.
That about the eyes on the hands. I know it's completely different. But
Mm.
Have you seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah, of course.
When the old demon when he picks his eyes up and he looks up.
Yeah,
yeah.
that as well. But yeah, I was thinking more like camp eyes. It looked quite cool going on your theme. So
yeah, you know the big, is it Wraithguard on the back?
Yeah,
on the back cover. Yeah,
£70 worth of plastic. That bad boy. Yeah.
You don't know the program Guyver? I'm sure it's called Guyver.
Mm.
It was like there was a series like sort of film.
See, every time you say that, I think of Gulliver's Travels and the big giant. I thought that's what you're referring to, but you don't mean that.
I think they were like TV movies,
Mm.
and basically this guy could turn into this. I can't remember. I think it's like some sort of alien item he had, and then he could turn into this kind of like.
You sure it wasn't like Megazord?
Superhuman. It can't
It's
say
Power
what,
Rangers
it's a bit like that,
Yeah.
but it was like earlier than that.
Was it Zordon?
I'm
or
sure
was that
it's
the
called
guy?
Guyver.
Who's Zordon? Is that the one that runs the?
I have no idea what you're talking
Isn't
about.
Zordon the face of the good? I don't know. But yeah,
I know
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. My
Yeah.
boy likes it, but I have no idea what's going on because it's just.
Depends which series you're watching, which spin-off.
Oh, right,
anyway,
okay.
back onto the topic. I mean, I was going to make some silly joke about White Dwarf, and not containing any fantasy and how 40k.
Doesn't really contain anything, does it?
Well, no.
Apart from adverts.
Well, we'll talk about that later on, Wayne, because we have a slight difference of opinion on it, but we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, I mean,
Don't we always?
well, exactly. That's what the show's all about. But it was, I was going to make a bit of a joke about how 40k is for a younger generation and all that, and then I thought, we should respect our elders. Anyway,
I love the way you thought that joke was awesome. Didn't you?
yeah, it is. It's great.
Just to let the public know, I've had to suffer that joke twice.
It took me ages. That it just comes to me like a rubbish joke. Anyway,
Like a bolt of inspiration, yeah?
Indeed. So the main thing I want to talk about in here is not necessarily White Dwarf, because all jokes aside, there wasn't a lot of fantasy releases. From a fan of Games Workshop as a whole and what they do and the 40k universe, and as someone who started out in 40k, the Eldar for me was always an army I liked, and so it was quite nice for me to flick through and look at the pretty pictures, I suppose. But apart from that, it didn't hold anything that the majority of our listeners would be interested on. So we'll sort of skip over that.
To say that Wraithguard picture is an awesome paint job.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. If you've got an airbrush, I bet you could have a real great time with that kind of model.
Big models, definitely, the tanks and all that.
Definitely. But I'm interested to see in real life how that looks on the board. I saw the pictures in the battle report, but obviously a 70 quid model that's about like 12 inches tall or whatever it is. I don't know how it looks on the board. I mean, actually in 40k, it probably looks okay because you've got flyers at that kind of level as well, haven't you, on the board quite often? Though something I'm not massively keen on when they've got loads of them. But yeah, it should be interesting. But yeah, nice model. I like it. I do like it. Now, the main thing I want to talk about in the news, it's not really news as such. It's rumour. It's a rumour. And I don't normally like to talk about these things on the show particularly, but in this case, for those of you who don't know, Warseer, the forums, it's warseer.com, I think it is a forum. It's not my favourite forum. Part of the reason is I always get this like eerie feel from it, because you get the Warhammer forum, it's nice and bright and white, and hello, we're in our ivory tower, and then you get Heelanhammer forum, nice and bright and everything else. And Warseer is it's all blue, 40k type feeling, dark, gothic looking. And I don't know why, but when you get Internet Warriors plus that kind of backdrop, it always puts me off going. But
it's a very serious looking website, isn't
it? It
is,
yeah. Hello and welcome to Warseer. It does look a bit like that, but on the whole, it is the place for rumours to go. So anyway, I was perusing through this, and it's been all over the internet, so you would have already seen this. And there's two guys on there, Harry and Hastings, who always, over the years, have been reliable.
They get it right, don't they?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that they've said that's ever wrong. And they sort of stunned the interweb community this week by revealing that according to their version of Games Workshop's release schedule, which, as I say, is a complete rumour, so this is all rumour mongering, is that 9th edition would be out next year. Now, if you look at previous releases of the Warhammer rulebook, that would fall in line. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary. But the thing that shocked everybody is that what they're saying is that there may well be a Ravening Horde style reset. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Wayne, do you want to explain what Ravening Hordes was all about?
Ravening Hordes was a single book with all the army lists in one book.
That went from 5th to 6th edition, didn't it, if I remember rightly?
Yeah.
I've got it not far from me.
Ravening Horde, the style of that started in third, might be wrong this, but just off the top of my head, 3rd edition maybe. Warhammer Armies was a hardback book, had all the army lists in it, and then at the back of it had smaller army lists for allied contingents. And then Ravening Hordes was brought out as a single book for the next edition, which was a was a paperback, kind of hard-spined paperback kind of thing. It wasn't like the hardback books you get for the army list. And that was all the army lists in one book. And then obviously when they brought out 6th edition, was it? There was a white pamphlet, if you like, in the rule book. Sorry, in the box set, which was a very, very brief description of all the army lists.
Yeah.
So they've done it 3 times previous.
Yeah, there is previous. I mean, it did make me laugh when I saw on the internet thread people going, "They'll never do that," and then people quoting, just writing "Ravening Hordes" underneath the quote of that to that person. But it's true, they have done it before. It wasn't the end of the world. It was certainly not balanced, as much as that argument is there for those of us that played under Ravening Hordes. It was a great power reset because at the time, 5th edition was all combo hammer and super powerful characters, and then you had power creep where the vampire book would come out and ruin it and everything else. And it was a great reset from a power level, but balance wise, you played Skaven and you were one of the only people ever using it on a tournament scene for a while, weren't you? Because it was so bad.
I think it was 14 months from the pamphlet Ravening Hordes. 14 months I think it was tournaments. I was the only Skaven player.
And this is when you were doing like 12, 13 a year as well. This isn't you being a cash gamer doing it. You were a tournament gamer.
But back then as well, you had a lot of like fluff scores. So you had you could do a story on your army. You could there was a lot of points for painting. There was so I actually didn't do that bad in tournaments because I made up a lot of my points on the sort of the soft scores. Yeah. So and obviously because it wasn't a particularly good army back then, I was getting good. You tend to get better sportsmanship scores as well, aren't you? If you're taking a fluffy army. So it all kind of balanced itself out really.
Indeed. And on the other end of the scale, I used Lizardmen, which are borderline amazing in Ravening Hordes because no one else had any toys. So your basic troops were so good and you had so good armor saves on everything that they were really, really good. So it wasn't great, but it was something that everybody embraced, I think. As a player at a club level and also at tournaments, I didn't really hear anybody moan about it. I think everyone was reasonably excited about it.
Yeah.
With the internet these days, who knows what the majority think? You can read hate all you like on the internet. But so there were some people on there, which is why I wanted to cover it really today, because it's something that I think there's going to divide opinion if that is the way that happens. Again, this is all rumours. What's your thoughts on it if they do go Ravening Horde style and have a bit of a reset? I mean, I should just clarify the rumour for the listeners is that it's going to be a reset, so you get your book, and again, the details aren't exactly fleshed out, but you would get some sort of, I don't know if it's an annual or like a Forces of Destruction and a Forces of Good type book where you'd have the army lists in, and then the army book releases as such would be source books, which would be maybe like scenarios or more fluff or lots of pictures and more about the regions of that particular thing or something. So like an Empire book with like the heraldry in it, like we've had before, but maybe with more in depth on scenarios and all that kind of stuff, special characters maybe, almost like a source book. And if you look at the I asked on Twitter about this. If you look at the 40k Eldar release, there is exactly that book, isn't there? There's one on a particular craft world, I believe it is. It has scenarios, different army makeup, and all that kind of stuff. And that is kind of how the rumours developing. So, what's your opinion on this, then, Wayne?
If the armies are balanced and they spent a bit of time actually, let's just say the rules, for example, don't change too much. They're kind of basically the same edition as what is now, but with all the FAQs put together and everything cleaned up, which hopefully that's what it'll be. It will just be like the real clean version of what we've got now, kind of where we've got to now as a new edition. And then they take all the books that they've currently done and they keep them as they are, apart from maybe the Tomb Kings. I'd like to see them change slightly so they're because they're not really in sync, I don't think, with the rest of the books, but that's just my personal opinion. And then obviously add the new books. But obviously, if they can get the new books to that level, which to be fair to Games Workshop, the way they've been pumping the books out, they've probably got 2 or 3 of these books already sorted anyway. And it's just a matter of, obviously release schedules to get them out.
Yeah, I mean...
So I'd imagine they're way ahead on, what actually is out to what they've got done. I imagine they're quite a way ahead of what they are because I'd imagine their release schedule is so organised because it has to be, obviously, for doing 40k and fantasy and making sure that everything drops into line and getting the deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So as long as they're balanced to each other, I think it would be great. Because you imagine like down your club and you get everybody gets their army list on the same day. Suddenly there isn't the whole, and they're balanced, so suddenly there isn't this we're all doing ogres. Or we're all doing dark
bandwagoning as it's known.
Yeah. Suddenly everyone's really infused about the army that they love, and they really want to get the new toys for it and play this. And if they have like splash releases where instead of it being say like a high off month, they turn around and they say, "Oh, we're going to do fast cavalry this." So they do like say 5 box sets, but they're 5 different races of of fast cavalry.
Yeah,
and then they might do a monstrous cavalry, and then they might do like I don't know, like a core month where they add in maybe some of the really old plastics.
Yes.
For example, Empire have got a really, really good plastic range, but the knights are really old.
Yes.
So they might redo the knights and then do some cavalry for another one, that kind of thing. So instead of it being race specific, it'll be troop type specific. That would, that might work.
No, I agree with you. I mean, Privateer Press, to say a naughty word on a Warhammer podcast, they did a similar sort of thing, don't they? They have you get a sample of the rules in the main rule book, and then you get the actual army book. Still have the rules in, but they're much more in depth. But they also did a kind of release thing like that where everybody got like battle engines, or they got like this extra thing, and everyone got one. And as you say, I think that's quite exciting in a way, because if you are a Wood Elf player and you generally just play Wood Elves, you're not interested for. I mean, imagine if you were a Wood Elf player and you had it so good in 7th, it was brilliant. You were enjoying yourself. Your book's gone slowly downhill through no fault Games Workshops. Just unfortunately the change in rule sets and the way the new books have come out, it's been like that.
Yeah.
But you haven't had an update for ages. What do? You're not buying any models. You're getting fed up a little bit with the game. Maybe you're getting jaded with the game. It's not great. But if you know, maybe every year there's an annual come out, like an update that you have to buy. All right, it's 50 quid or probably or something like that. You'd pay it because you'd have a brand new tweaked list, and it's exciting. Imagine every year all the army lists got redone in a new annual with the FAQ, anything that was an FAQ problem errated into it, and all that kind of stuff. It'd make it brilliant. I think for the game. My main concern is a little bit like it was when it went from 7th to 8th, where you went, oh my god, please don't wreck the game, please don't make it into some sort of like child friendly game of Lord of the Rings skirmish where it's like 6, baby, my goblins beat Aragon, that kind of like that thing. As long as I don't do that. But then I thought I was really worried with that with 8th, and so many. I mean, you look at the Australian scene. That was probably the one that was...
That was the biggest knee-jerk reaction to a rule set ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was well publicised.
And completely wrong as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the best edition of Warhammer there's ever been. I've played every edition. This is the best, right? That reaction that they have, I mean,
for those of you who haven't seen it,
no disrespect to you guys, but if any of you Australians are listening, but that was
the Australian people that rage quit probably aren't listening.
Terrible reaction, terrible reaction, because this is the best set of rules we've ever had.
No, that's not us generalising about Australia. For those of you who are either near and haven't heard of it, there was a brilliant podcast in its time called Podhammer, where pretty much the father of all Warhammer podcasts, if you want to put it like that way, and in its heyday was brilliant, and it kind of blew the. Probably, well, I don't know if the UK scene's got that kind of thing across the world where people know names because names get dropped all the time or not. But like you almost felt like you knew the Australian scene, and it was a bit like a soap, wasn't it? Really, you used to listen to it and wonder what people were up to. And I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of the guys that were talked about at the ETC and stuff. And then literally, pretty much the whole of the top player population of the tournament scene decided that they didn't like 8th and went and played War Machine. And I don't think they've looked back. Actually, I think they're still playing it. But that was because they didn't feel that it. It was for them anymore, and what can you say? It's a lot of money and time and investment. So if that's what they feel, it's unfortunate. I think.
It's personal
great,
opinion, because I mean I've played War Machine and I don't think it's all that. So
no, I think it's a great game, but it doesn't grab me like Warhammer does. So.
I don't think it's a great game. I definitely wouldn't call it a great game.
Well, it's not a fun. I don't think it's the way you like to play games. I don't think it's a fun game. You don't get quirky stories. It's very statistician type game.
It's so funny what you said. The way you like to play games, you like to have fun. Yeah, that is kind of the point.
Yeah. Okay, I walked into that one, but yeah. Okay,
let's play a game that's no fun at all. Okay.
Yeah. No, but I don't know how to describe it. Like in Warhammer, you get quirky stories and funny things can happen, right? And if you're not playing competitively, they're funny. I think with War Machine, without turning this into this is War Machine, my experiences of playing it was that that kind of stuff doesn't happen because it's not as random, because of the way the system works and everything else, and but then you don't have the stories.
It's more geared to control freak players.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It creates a really tactical kind of game, but it doesn't. I don't know. I don't enjoy it the same as I do with Warhammer, and I think it's A, because of the aesthetic of it, and B fluff, C, there's loads of reasons, but the fun aspect with Little Bunny Ears, the fun, I didn't find in it. So anyway, that aside, so regardless of that's what happened in the Australian scene, and it's a shame for those guys, but I think that would worry people again this time round. Like you think, and it would worry me. That was when I first read that rumour, I thought, no, we're in the best Warhammer's ever been. The books are balanced, everything's coming out quickly. There's not, in the grand scheme of things, compared to other editions, that many erratas, FAQs that we don't know about. There's just this appalling backwards and forward on this unmodified leadership problem FAQ. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just read the FAQ. It will hit you in about 3 minutes. So there's two contradictory questions in it. And that was my first instinct was, oh my God, please don't change it. But then the more you think about it, you think, I felt that about the last edition, and we're sat here now, and you wouldn't want to go back to playing 7th after playing 8th, would you?
No, definitely not.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So I trust in the guys.
I was never that keen on 7th. There was a lot of people who loved it, but I like all the editions of Warhammer. They've all got their merits and their faults, as any game has. But I wasn't, to be fair, I was really happy to see 7th go when it did go.
But I'm thinking if they do go this way, and there's options for source books and all that kind of stuff, it could be brilliant. I mean, we've talked about it enough on shows, but we're sitting here. I've got Blood in the Badlands book I bought because I love that whole. I've always liked that whole link campaign aspect, but I've never got to a point where I've had a fully painted army and got involved in one. I don't know why, and it's one of my hobby targets for the next 18 months, say, is to get an army painted and get. While still playing tournaments, I still want to play tournaments. I still want to win, but also, from club play and that, being able to do that kind of thing. And we've got Blood in the Badlands, we've got Storm of Magic. We've hardly played, and the back of the rule book we've done a couple of scenarios out of over the time it's been out. We barely scratched the surface. Imagine if if you were that kind of gamer and that was all you wanted to do. If we didn't play tournaments,
see, I still feel, to me, 8th still feels fresh.
Yeah, same with me. That's what I'm saying. We've barely scratched the surface. I mean, a 9th would be great.
7th,
Oh yeah, 7th.
When we got to the
ready.
end of 7th, we'd had enough. Obviously just us personally, but it got to the point where just like it's getting jaded. It's getting a bit dull. Not dull, but it's run its course. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping with this one they just basically, even though it'll be 9th edition, it will basically be 8th edition cleaned up. It'll be basically what 8th edition should have been from the beginning. Yeah.
I mean, I just hope internally they haven't got some massive impression from either the internet or a small local gaming group of that it needs massively changing, because I honestly don't think, out of all the people I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of people in the hobby over the time of 8th edition being out, I can't find anyone that thinks 8th edition's rubbish. There's people that think 8th edition, like the magic needs to be toned down, and things like that. Fine, okay. And there's a thread on the internet recently where there are people wish listing, of course, because this topic's come out at night, and nearly every other one is fix cannons, fix cannons, fix cannons, fix cannons. Right? Nobody really likes the way cannons work. I hate them and I use them.
What would you, if you could change one rule, what would it be?
Cannons. Simple as that. It would be, I'd either make them, I don't know how I'd do it. I don't know if they'd have to roll to hit. I don't know if they would. I don't like the fact it creates arguments for a start. 10 from the back of this base. I can see this point here because of this, or I can do this, or I can do that. Oh, there's nothing else to shoot at. I'll shoot your vampire lord, end of the game. That kind of stuff. I just don't like it. It's a valid tactic, but I don't like it. And I think that they're, in some ways, it's one of the only things in the game that naturally ruins games. So, and it also, if Games Workshop want to sell a lot more models and want to see them on the board, we'd all love to push around more big monsters, but no one's going to all the time. But cannons can take them off and around, I don't think. So, D3 wounds maybe less of a chance. I don't really know, but I would do something with that to stop them being as they are. That's the best way. What about you?
1-up arm saves.
I knew you were going to say that.
Just wouldn't have 1-up. I wouldn't allow 1-up armor saves.
What about 1-up rerollables?
Because strength 4 doesn't mean anything.
1-up rerollables, Wayne. That's where it's at.
No.
You love it.
Well, if you've got a character that's tooled up in a certain way, I don't mind that so much, because obviously he is special. Yeah, so that's fine. But units with a 1-up armor save, no, I don't agree with that at all. Because, like I say, strength 4. Some armies have only got strength 4, and obviously if it's a toughness 3 with a 1-up armor save, you could say the strength 4 is able to wound better, but when it comes to the armor save, the strength 4 doesn't mean anything.
No, cynics.
That's what bugs me.
Cynics would say that it's an easy rules right to make things seem different. So you just increase. You give these ones these are knights with a 1-up save, and these are knights with the 2-up. The Bretonian Knight looks a lot different from a Empire Knight or whatever. Someone's going to tell me they do. There's some, well, he's in full plate. Yeah, but surely an Bretonian Knight's in full plate. There's probably some historian sort of LARPer that's going to tell me that's completely wrong. And actually, there is definitely different two types of thing. But when I look at the models and I look at an Empire Knight and a Bretonian Knight, I don't think, yes, he's clearly got a better armor save than you, apart from the horse. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's secretly a horse that's actually got the armor.
There's a lot of things that don't, with the fluff, when you read the fluff, that there's There's many things that you could do to crossover and go, well, that don't really work.
Yeah.
I mean, you think Bretonians don't really care about their peasantry, if you like, get the bare minimum of equipment. They don't really care about those. They just, they just do the bare minimum, feed them and, keep them alive, basically. The knights get everything. Their whole culture is based around knights, whereas the Empire isn't, yet the Empire knights are better in the game.
Don't even get me started on straight 4 croc
stuff,
scores.
Stuff.
Yeah. But okay. Yeah, we're going to sidetrack on that. But we could be here all day, but
there's loads of avenues you could go down with this. But then when the Brett book comes out, I'm sure you'll find that the knights will have some really funky new rules that will make them stand out and obviously showcase the difference in culture.
Indeed. And so I think to round that little segment up, basically, my initial thoughts, as I think a lot of people's would be, is first off fear. And then the more you think about it, the more you think, well, if you're placing your trust in these guys, I'm sure it's going to be epic. And that is when 8th edition came out. And I'm not just saying this because of, in hindsight, 8th edition is, in my opinion, great. I did feel this when it came out. There was a big excitement and a buzz about it. And when you got that book for the first time, you opened it, you just thought epic. The way that the artwork was done. I think if you listen back to our show, you'd probably get that feeling from us if that's how we felt it. But I honestly thought it was like this epic storytelling sort of... don't know, everything about it was just cool, and seemed bigger and grander and more fantasy. And if that's anything to go by, then I'm excited.
Things every edition of Warhammer that comes out, when you get the new edition, you think, oh, it's really come of age, because it's so much better than it was the last time. In not just rule set, but just the look, the feel of it, the presence of it. And it just, you get that every time you get a new one. And the box sets are all, when you first get the box set with all the models and everything like that. That's just, it's like an event, isn't it? It's pretty special, because we love the game so much. And the next one will be the same, regardless of what people are happy with or not happy with. It will be the same feeling. We'll all get really excited about it. We'll all buy it because we will. We won't suddenly go, oh no, this rule's changed. That's it. I'm not playing anymore because we just, over here that doesn't really happen.
No.
That was another dig at the Australians then, wasn't it? Sorry, lads.
Might just edit that one.
Yeah.
Or not.
But no, I think it'll be fine. I can't see it having the shake-up that it did from 7th to 8th into 9th. I mean, I
think the key mechanics are pretty set. And that's the key for me, is as long as the key mechanics stay the same, it's going to be epic. I'm going to keep using that word, and then when it comes out and it is epic, I'm going to be like, oh, I said it would be epic.
They might just take a couple of rules, and maybe because this wouldn't be such a bad thing, they'll revisit the magic system. Well, not so much the magic system, but the spells themselves.
I agree.
They might just redo all the spells and tone them down a little bit, because I think that's the only glitch with this rule set, is that the spells can be too game changing.
Here's one for you: how many in rulebook laws have broken spells? Pop quiz, I know. We haven't looked at them. Someone's bound to point out that we're going to miss one. But Tomb King magic, Orc and Goblin magic, Ogre magic, and High magic. We got any more? And Demon magic and Warrior magic, right? We might have missed one, but it won't matter. It's the same point. Name me a spell that's anyone's moaned about from any of those decks.
In the new books?
Yep. Think of it. I'm going to do this just to fill time.
No, I don't think I can, actually.
No, because there isn't any. That's why.
In your opinion.
In my personal opinion, there isn't any.
No, you're right, there isn't.
People's general problems are Dwellers, Death Magic, and so Dwellers, Death Magic, Shadow Magic, but not necessarily Withering and Feeble Miasma. They're great, but they're not game breaking. Yeah, Mind Razor, Pit of Shades, Dwellers, all the Death Snipes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's people's problems, right? Purple Sun. Rewrite the rule book and nerf them. As an internet word would be, or power them down for those who haven't heard the phrase. There you go, problem fixed.
Yeah. So just basically the laws of magic.
Yeah. Just you're going to rewrite the book, rewrite those. And I'm not talking, most of the spells are brilliant. Love it. Love the way they work.
Would you change 13th?
Yeah, of course I would. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's the Skaven player as well saying it. Yeah. But why wouldn't you? It's a stupid spell. You never. The idea of it was.
I wouldn't go that far.
No. Listen,
it's not a stupid spell.
No, it's awesomely game winning, but that's not the point. Right? That is the point. It was that when the book came out in 7th, you didn't even consider it, did you? Why would you take it? It's 25.
Was that a whole thing when you kind of read all the spells? Yeah, they're all right, and then you read 13th. Like, oh my god,
5 dice. I'm going to cast this, am I? Yeah, you just didn't do it. So it's only with 8th edition that anybody ever takes it, and it's surprisingly ridiculous. ridiculous. So,
See, I don't know how they nerf that. I think they have to rewrite it. You know,
well, they just up the casting value to 35 or something stupid. Oh no,
no, I don't think
No, I
they could
dunno.
do that. I mean, because the casting value is high. Yeah, it's high anyway. You've always got a 6 dice it if you've got a chance of casting it, and you know, the amount of times I 6 diced it and not.
it's pretty much average. But yeah,
and
you're
not
right.
not got it off or not got
No,
an irresistible.
as another scoping player, I 100% agree with you. It happens more times than most opponents would remember. But
raising
yeah.
the casting value is not the way to go. I think it needs, the same name, but really it works differently. You rewrite the whole spell.
Yeah, I mean, imagine down the garage or in the club, it's quite fun, isn't it? Oh, I turned your whole unit into rats. But ultimately, you do that at a tournament with the guy's level 4 in his battle standing, and he's not chuckling and laughing at you, is he? It's game ruining. So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's easily fixed. So, you know, and I know that's always one of your pet hates. You've always said that through this edition, is that magic for you is too powerful. Personally, I love the magic system. I just don't like a couple of the spells, and that's all I would
Yeah, I love
change.
the system. I think the system's great. I think it works brilliantly. It's just it's not the whole. It's not all the spells. So, you know, it's just a few of them. But they're the ones that keep popping up because they're so popular and people are taking them. So you see them all the time. They just need, just toning down a bit. That's all.
Good. So I think we'll leave that sort of rumour mill more. It's more of a rumour mill today than a news. I mean, I suppose we should.
I think because of the sources, though, we're taking it serious.
Yes,
because, like you say,
yeah.
they've never
been wrong.
They've never knowingly been wrong. So it is. They are definitely ones to take seriously.
And it was a big internet topic over recent weeks, and still is to the day of recording. So hopefully you enjoyed our initial thoughts on that. I should just say, although I was being a little bit flippant on fantasy releases, there weren't any, but there were one from the back library. One you might be interested in, actually, Wayne. There was a book about Queek Headtaker, released from the Black Library.
Oh, one of the novels on him, yeah.
So, because previously there's Grey Seer Thankful series, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Because I read at least one of those. But yeah, there's one on Queek Headtaker.
C.L. Werner did one. That was it. Templar, though.
Yeah, it was the one in Lustria. That's why I read
Never
it.
finished it.
No. I actually quite liked it. It was better than Runefang that he wrote. I didn't rate that at all.
I got 2/3 of the way through it, and that was it. I got bored. Just put it one side.
Well, hopefully this one is better. So there you go.
He's not a great writer.
Okay.
Sorry if he's not dissed him.
Can you write better? Hey?
No, but I don't get paid to write. He does.
Wow. Okay. Anyway,
I'm not a better sculptor than Trish, but I don't get paid to sculpt, do I?
I'm entitled to my opinion.
But I'm sure if I was to get my hammer out of my shed, I could do a fairly decent job.
Brilliant. Time to move on. Good stuff. On to the next segment.
Lately, things haven't been working out, have they? I mean, you must have noticed it. I mean, there was a time when me and you were wonderful together. We really were, but things are different now. It just doesn't seem to be the spark they used to be. And I think it's time we had a change and maybe went our separate ways. And I've decided to collect Empire.
Need a new army? Go to oddgames.co.uk for up to 20% off. Odd Games. The obvious choice. Okay, so this one's a new one. We're going to do it as a bit of our main topic today, but ultimately this could be a shorter version that we do on a more regular basis. So we're very, 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 very interested in whether you thought this was a good segment. And this is like a time tunnel, we're going to call it, stolen from a local radio station, but it seems to work for them, so we'll have it as well. It's a time tunnel episode. And today we're going to take you back to 1996. And the way we're going to do this is by looking at the White Dwarfs of the era. Now, to put you in the picture, my lounge, apart from being a complete mess, has behind the sofa a massive pile of White Dwarfs all of them I've ever owned are all sitting there, almost at hand's reach. Depends.
I thought you were going to say so, a person chained up out the way who's been cleaning up models for you.
yeah. But no.
You'll have to edit that.
Yeah, we'll have to. There we go. If that sounded a bit odd, that was because I had to edit something I said there. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, the White Dwarfs are sitting behind the sofa, and I decided to pull a couple out the other day. And regular followers on Twitter will have seen me tweet, and these are the ones I'm actually going to talk about. It's the ones I was tweeting about because it has some absolute gems of articles in there. So before we do go back to the future, though, Wayne, I've got a question for you. Yeah.
Go on then.
How do wood elves travel back to the future?
I don't know. How do wood elves travel back to the future?
Well, they go into their wood, right? Yeah. They get in their DeLorean, in DeLorean.
And that's the second time I've had to suffer that joke as well.
I tried to tell my missus this joke.
It was better because I knew how to react to it. I say better, it was still awful.
They get in DeLorean.
You don't have to say it twice, I
tried to explain this to my missus.
It's not like I didn't understand it. It was just a really bad joke.
I tried to explain it to my missus and she just looked at me and went, "That's not funny." It's like, DeLorean. Anyway, yeah. Those of you who don't get if you don't get the joke, or if it's not funny, that's different to not getting it. If you don't get it, check out Back to the Future, the film.
Do you think in the future there would be like, there'd be like a Warhammer comedy club, and there'd be Warhammer comedians?
What? And I'll be there. Is that what you're saying?
Getting bottled on stage.
Yeah. Booed off stage. Yeah. Anyway, so straight on to the time tunnel then. We've taken a couple of months. I've taken May and June from 1996 to have a look at some interesting points. So I've got in front of me the White Dwarf from May. It's 120 pages, so it's about 25, 30 pages less than today's in page numbers. But let's have a look at some of the articles. Now, this is interesting because I wanted to look at these and then look at today's as well and see the sort of differences. So we've got it was the Wood Elf book release. Now, these days, if we get a release, look at Skaven as pretty the prime example for me. They released a book. The whole episode was pretty much whole edition was basically on Skaven. Then for 2 or 3 weeks after, they had more splash releases with stuff, didn't they, following it up? And it was just tons and tons of Skaven info. If you're not a Skaven fan, it's no good to you. This Wood Elf release, you're talking 10, 20 pages probably of release, and enough to give you a real flavour of the book. There was some fluff and an overview of the Wood Elf book. They used to do that on most releases. I can't remember with the High Elves, for example, whether they did. Like the author writing about, like Robin Credence did. He did a video, if I remember, as well, for the Tomb King book, talking about his concepts behind it and what he thought should be in the book and what it's all about. I don't know if they've done that recently, but they always did. And this book was the same. It had, I think it was Jake Thornton or somebody talking about it. I'm not sure if he was actually wrote the book, but it's still him talking about it.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the overview of the book and what they're all about, basically, because at this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, as the old man of the setup, you know. This was the first time the Wood Elves had a full book by themselves, didn't they, in 5th edition? They kind of only existed as a sort of a side list, didn't they, previously? I don't ever remember them having a book before that.
Let me get this right. Yes.
Regiment of Renown, wasn't it? And
there was, yeah. You had because you had the weird setup with a lot of the old units where you could have certain units that were regiments of renown added to armies. Like you could have ogres in Empire armies and allied forces and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, in a similar vein, lizard men. The really old list of lizard men. You had troglodytes, which were kind of like what Kroxigor became. Yeah. You had Slan. Even before the Slan riders, because Slan used to be like a unit choice. You had blowpipe Slan, elite Slan, kind of like upgraded with armor and stuff. And then you had at one point you had like three different levels of Cold One Knights, Slan Cold One Knights. But before that, going to 2nd edition, I think it was, there was a really basic lizard man list in that. And there wasn't anything like Slan or anything. It was just the lizard men were actually, I think they were the wizards. You had kind of the level heroes, certain levels of heroes. So some of the armies have, if you really go back, they've changed an awful lot, So my main point with that was exactly that. They needed an explanation as how they've released them, really, what they're all about, and that's still changed. I think if you look at the 5th edition book, which I was a massive fan of, to the 6th/7th book of Wood Elves, the one that is current, if you like. Yeah. They've massively changed there. You look at the artwork, and they're all kind of like, emo is one word that gets kicked about, but they're all like more vicious, recluse looking than they were in the old book. They were all kind of meant to be recluse and everything in there, but they always looked a bit hairy-fairy, didn't they, with the big belts with massive gems on it. Whereas in this, they're more like kind of I don't know, like the Dryads. Dryads were quirky little tree men, whereas in the current book, they're vicious spirits, aren't they? I think if you go early doors with the Wood Elves, they were very similar to like Lord of the Rings, where they kind of lived in their own small realm, kind of like the Lorien thing. As opposed to the
DeLorean.
Anyway, they're small. They're small realm. They kept themselves to themselves. They protected what they had, and it was very similar to the Elves of Lothlorien. So it was very, very similar to that. But then as Warhammer's progressed, the races that were very kind of Tolkienish have progressed in their own way and become they're not like Lord of the Rings at all. They're their own races. That in the early days, orcs were the way they look now. Right back in the day, orcs were workshop painted in brown, and they were there wasn't none of this green skins or anything like that. That's something that workshops developed as Warhammer's developed, because they knew they had to give them their own identity. Because I think if you go right back, there was a bit of a legal thing between Games Workshop and Tolkien Enterprises, because obviously they were producing orcs and they were saying, well, it's a plagiarism of our product, if you like. And and I think that's where the green skin come from. I think that they knew they had to kind of like revamp everything. So if you look right from first edition to now, all of the armies have had a real big development. Probably the one that's had the least development is the Empire, because it was kind of a really that got the sort of roots of that were laid pretty early for the Empire, and that's pretty
the whole old world concept.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, and that's the one that's been a steady Eddie all the way through, which it should be, because it is kind of the centre of the Warhammer world, isn't it?
Yeah,
Everything's kind of told from most of what you read is told from the view of someone in the Empire. It's that kind of thing. Even like with the Demon book, it's some bloke from the Empire that's travelled around the realms of chaos. So that you can understand why that has kind of kept its line pretty straight. But everything else has developed quite significantly over the years, I think.
No, I agree with you. But in this particular point in time, it just goes to show you the development, doesn't it? This was the first time they'd ever been seen. So the book came out, and there was a bit of fluff. But considering, so it's this massive release, and it was, for me, it was just enough. It was, if you're not a Wood Elf fan, as we're going to see, there's tons of stuff in this White Dwarf that would keep you coming back to it for years. Well, like I am, 13 years on, right? There was a lot, 17 years? No, 13 years. What is it? 1996. What's that?
96?
Yeah.
17 years.
17 years. 17 years, sorry. Good thing I don't need to use numbers for a living. Lots of...
Yeah, you're only an accountant.
Shh. Lots of pics of Woodies, yeah, and the start of the book starts off in that manner, and the back cover of it. And for those of you, some of you in the hobby would have never seen them, but basically years ago you had a components, you probably heard long-term wargamers talk about it. You had a components service where every single arm, if you wanted 25 of a right arm of some guy that you liked, if you wanted 25 treatment arms for the right arm, you could have 25 treatment arms. So in the back of each of the books, the new releases would come and they would be shown with their component numbers in the back in lead form, basically. And so that's in the back, all shown Wood Elves. There's a chat with Gary Morley about his work as a sculptor, and how he goes about his job. There's a battle report for Epic. Again, if you haven't heard of that game, it was a specialist game as they became known. At this point in time, I never felt, I don't know about you, Wayne, but the games that they supported never felt like this is a little side event to Warhammer and 40k. This is a game that we are releasing, and it was always felt like that. I don't know what your opinion is.
I think in the early days, because they didn't know which one was going to be the most popular. They didn't know how it was going to, what was going to sell the most. So every game you got the impression that every game was treated with the same respect. So yeah, when you read through, I think that's why you only get the Wood Elf release only got so many pages, because they knew they had to cover Epic and 40k and fantasy in general and all their other games.
Yeah, I mean, as we go through this, I think this is one of the key things that you'll notice from the two editions is that because there's multiple game systems, there is multiple coverage in it. But you had a battle report for Epic, you had link missions for Space Hulk. Now this is something that is very, very stands out from both these when you look at them in comparison to the new one. Is there's a lot of as it says on the front, it is a supplement. So there's a lot of rules and campaign rules and all this kind of stuff in them that were used to be used with the game. And you just don't see that very often anymore. Say what you like about White Dwarf, whether you like it, whether you hate it, it just doesn't happen anymore. You very rarely see it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to say, but they released, Juggernauts in there for rules, and they released Wraiths and all that. So they have done the odd rule, but that's only been as a stopgap, hasn't it, for something that's coming out? I mean, these ones we particularly picked, there's made up special characters that's never been seen again. It's just they had an article with some guy who wrote some rules. They published it. There's link campaigns for Space Hulk, which was one thing that, again, you've probably never ever seen again, but it was a usable campaign that you could use in that particular issue. Now, my all-time favourite article was in these couple of White Dwarfs, well, a few of them actually, but I was a massive Warhammer Quest fan. Now, the app's come out this week, and I'll mention that later in my in our Beardy Weedy Weeks, but there was an article in the Lost Kingdoms. So Lustria the Lizardmen weren't really out at this point massively. There wasn't a well-developed place, and there was a whole couple of articles about how you could take your adventures in your Warhammer Quest dungeons to lost places and how it interacted at seaports. You could be press ganged into the Navy and never seen again. You could get seasick. You could all this kind of really cool kind of pirate Treasure Island type themes with kind of a Columbus feel to it. It's brilliant, all mixed into one article. But again, it's a rule set that for me, I used that when I played Warhammer Quest. I used those rules. They were there. There's basics on horse painting, which are very similar to to the sort of painting articles these days, what you should do and what you should paint and stuff. There were some optional 40k rules, again, just some rules that you could use. I think it was on bombardment or something like that, if I recall correctly. So it was you could use some optional opening salvo type thing. J files. My two, I've left the best two for last. The J files. So for those of you who've never remembered this, it was a set of stuff that Jervis Johnson wrote that had it. And this is particular article, and all the articles were sort of the same in this. They're very small print, 6 to 8 pages. A lot of them weren't they? Wayne, if you flick through it, and this one was on comp
compared to now when they're half the size and the font's bigger.
Yes, yeah, which I'm not a massive fan of. What's the point in making the book deeper and making the font bigger? Yeah. Surely it just costs print. But anyway, this article from Jervis was about comp. It was about his reasons why he comped the Grand Tournament. Now, it always makes me chuckle a little bit when you see newer gamers on the Warhammer forum or Warsaw, if you sort of hang out there, that are arguing about Warhammer was never attempted to be comped. Why comp it? It's the best ever. You should be able to do this and that and that. And then you read this article. I really wish they would have just put it up on their website somewhere. They probably won't, because I really feel the company's changed its direction, opinions on this kind of article. You'll never see the like of it again. Where they're not criticising their own product, but some people could read it as criticism of their own product. And he goes on
being honest.
Yeah, he goes on, and basically what Jervis has done is he's listed his rules for the Grand Tournament he did that year, and he goes into his reasons as to why. And there's a statement here which I'm just going to read for you, the whole article's good, but I'll just read a little part of it, which sort of gets to the heart of it. He put, tournament games also benefit from the use of some limitations to the full army lists. In this case, the limitations are imposed to attempt to guarantee that players have an enjoyable and testing game, rather than to recreate a particularly unique set of circumstances, as is the case with the scenario. And he says, I've included my rules. So here is the Grand Tournament rules from 1996. There's only 4 of them. They're listed in 4 points, but no special characters may be taken at all. So there you go. It's been there for some time. That's where if people wonder what the hate is about special characters, well, Games Workshop did it themselves. And you read the reasons why. It's because it's a fluff perspective. I think somewhere someone mentions that Carl Franz wouldn't go and jump on Deathclaw to go and repel a 1,000-point border invasion somewhere. It's all right, lads. Yeah. Don't worry about this, boys. I've got this one. It just wouldn't happen. So, and that was that. Wizards with a magic level of 5 may not be used, which were the uber mages of the time. No more than 1 greater demon may be used in any chaos army. Well, it's kind of a given. Alloys may not be included. No magic items or rewards of greater than 50 points may be used. Well, again, you had uber items back in this point where 75 points to 100 points were massive. No riderless monsters may be taken. They've been eliminated from most army lists now anyway until the Storm of Magic came out. Yep. No more than 1 more machine or chariot may be chosen for each regiment of troops included in the army. I love that one. People moan about war machine restrictions, but you actually had to have units then to be able to take them. So there you go. No spells that require 3 power to cast may be used. Now this is the equivalent of banning Dwellers and back in then. You had Assault of the Stone and some really big spells back in 5th edition. Yep. And 3 power were the big boys. So it would be the equivalent of banning all the level 6 spells. All models used may be the appropriate type for the troops represented. So it's a WYSIWYG thing, and what you see is what you get. And only material from Warhammer, Battle Magic, Arcane Magic, may be used. So interesting, Wayne? It goes to show you that back then, they considered super spells a problem. And he goes on to there's it's written in internet sort of wording. What no power free spells ? And he puts the reason. Why he didn't want this. He put the reason on the ban for special characters was covered in last month. So explain last month why he banned special characters. And then he put the reason I've banned level 3 spells and psychic powers is in order to allow wizards to have some effect on the game, but not dominate it. In Warhammer in particular, the use of a powerful spell or psychic power can win or lose the game for a player in a single turn, especially when playing in relatively small games typical of those fought in tournaments. The limit does mean that it's slightly more likely that a wizard or psyker will not be able to draw a set of power cards equal to his level. It's just a bit about the actual mechanic, but generally the concept is the same, isn't it? Yeah. Jervis felt back in the day that those spells that ended games very quickly weren't very tactically challenging for tournaments.
And it's true
paraphrased,
now,
obviously, but yeah.
What we said about the magic, some of the spells the way they are now, it should complement the game. It shouldn't be the game. It should just be part of the game.
Yeah, and this whole article is a great read because it basically reinforces the fact that look, they wrote the books because they need to write it for a wider audience. They want you to have 10,000 point battles around your mate's house with 10 of you playing and fighting massive campaigns and all the rest of it using their rule set.
Yep.
But there's nothing wrong with using it for tournaments, as they did back then, and and the point is that what he's saying, in my personal opinion, from extracting what he's written over the years, is that house rules and things are totally fine, whether it's a club, whether it's a tournament. If it makes it more enjoyable for the players involved, that's all that matters.
And Jervis has always said that, hasn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
He's never changed his view on that. He's always been, take Warhammer as a guideline, and if you feel that you want to change something to make it more enjoyable, then do it. And that's always been true.
Indeed. And so there you go, people. Those of you that moan about comp, it was done by Games Workshop themselves all those many years ago. Absolutely brilliant article to look back on, I think, with when you're looking, especially as somebody like we do, where we run a big tournament, we talk a hell of a lot about Warhammer. We pretty much live Warhammer and everything else. Reading an article from the guys that had a massive part in introducing and writing the game and everything else, and how their thoughts on it were and how they went about writing the comp system is something you will never ever see again in White Dwarf, because I honestly don't think the company, from a business perspective, would allow it. But it's great for those of us that
it's
want some guidance.
I've never understood that, because it's kind of like they view it as, we can't even appear to be slightly negative about what we're producing. But people aren't stupid nowadays. If someone writes a really honest view and say, the game goes two ways. If you want to play in a really highly competitive way, then you need to do this. And if you want to play just that whole, let's just have fun and massive games and play Storm and Magic, then go this way. But if you do that in a really honest way, it's not detrimental. It's not, people aren't going to suddenly stop buying stuff, are they?
No, it was good. And the other thing about this is, in the front of the magazine, Jervis sold out. Jervis Johnson has announced he's officially run out of good ideas. Only kidding, but unfortunately all the tickets for the forthcoming grand tournament are sold out. They sold 264 places to gamers back then, and that was over several tournaments. It says tournaments, so I'm guessing, like it always was, it was a couple of heats and a final, or 3 heats or whatever. But the key to it was 264 tickets 17 years ago. There was tournament interest back then, and I think it will continue, because people always want to find new gamers and see new things, don't they? Forget about the competitive element. Some people like that, some people don't, but the fact remains that you can meet other gamers in a place and play some games. So,
but the thing that's always rung true over the years with tournaments, you'll always get a percentage of players that know they're going to get battered all weekend, but they don't stop them going.
No,
because they enjoy it. No. Maybe they don't enjoy getting bad, but as the weekend as a whole, they enjoy the social event and everything that goes with it.
They do. Now, the last article I've picked is one that I was tweeting about, which is called Steel Mania. So article by Nigel Stillman, who was one of the old schools at Games Workshop. He's basically got an article on style of play, and basically it says Steel Mania, does fun still exist, is basically the topic of the thing, and how to play Warhammer in the right spirit, which is quite cool. And it goes on about styles of play, and you'll like this, Wayne. Here are some styles of play which definitely lack imagination. I would like to identify a few of these. A fussy obsession with the right kind of magic item, and worse still, the quest for the all-powerful combination of magic items. Playing too defensively, relying on shooting magic and war machines to beat your opponent whilst hiding your own troops in their deployment area. I've never done that.
Yes, you, Dan.
Using tiny units of too few models, which was an interesting concept at this point, because competitively,
you used to have your army of multiple drops of 5 archers or something.
Yeah. You ever played that with our army? 6 units
do
of
it
5.
Escape, you had the 5 slaves.
Yeah.
5s of slaves.
When you couldn't overrun, it was rather good.
It was great.
Not for fun though, Wayne?
No.
Not playing to the spirit of the rules, or worse still, not reading the rules for yourself and believing in hearsay. Always playing against inexperienced players, what we call chump bashing, basically. Some players only ever take on players they know to be less experienced than themselves. They know, or think they know, the rules better, and unfortunately manage to convince a new player of their knowledge. See, this kind of stuff, the way this reads, if you read this whole article, which I'm not going to do, it very much reads like a gamer having a chat about... but you wouldn't find this in White Dwarf. I don't know how to explain it. You wouldn't read this article in White Dwarf, because it kind of, in certain places, it's derogatory about some people in the hobby. But what he's trying to do is promote good play. But you just wouldn't. I can't put it into words. But you just wouldn't see it in White Dwarf. Or do you disagree?
No, I do agree. But I think obviously when this was written, the wargaming community was it was obviously a lot smaller. And going back to what we talked about earlier, it was very honest. Everyone was very honest with each other. Where it's such a massive monster, the whole, obviously they sold a lot of stuff back then, obviously compared to what they're selling now.
Yeah.
And they're going to sit on the fence. They're not going to. There's no way they're going to take a risk of writing an article which may offend someone in some way.
Letting a guy have a pop basically at all the dwarf players up.
Yeah.
You're too expensive sitting on the deployment zone. Well, I haven't got an option, dude. You wrote the book, right? I don't know. It was very interesting. And they go through, it goes through other stuff as well. I mean, again, going back to it.
Saying that, we didn't have all the forums we've got now.
No.
So people get to view their honest opinion on the forums, whether they're educated, opinions or not. So this was the only place to do it, really.
I agree with you. And I love reading this. And we'll go back to it when we reflect on a current White Dwarf this month, for example. This is I think it's 8-page article done in like size 10 Arial font. It's a lot of text and interesting stuff. But small armies, he says, for a long time, everyone always played a 3,000 point army. It was getting to the stage where players felt they couldn't start playing Warhammer until they collected 3,000 points. Now we're up to 2,000 points that Jervis basically came up with at a tournament. And you think 2,000, 2,400 is pretty much the norm now, but it goes to show you the change in tides in how the game was approached.
3,000, and everything was on an 8 before table, not 6 before.
Which is quite nice for 3K, isn't it?
So you always played on 8 before table, and it was 3,000 points.
I mean, to be honest, for years, even at this point, 8 befores were always recommended as being the kind of size you'd want, and then cutting it down for 6-4 if you wanted. Because like I did, my first ever gaming table through reading White Dwarf was a 8x4, but it's in 4 sections, so you could leave the section off. And to this day, that's my gaming board. So
first tournament I went to, and it was 6 before tables. It just felt really weird.
Yeah.
Because you just felt really. Because I always played, as I do now, I always played quite big armies. The 8 before, you could really stretch it out and cover the space great. And then obviously when you went to 6 foot tables, it was everything just felt so compacted.
I like this as well. Right, ready? This one's just, I don't know. This one's just been a bit cheeky, really. The standard set piece battle with 2 3,000 point armies is actually a scenario. It is a pitched battle scenario. Both armies have obviously marched to the battlefield, encountered each other, camped for a night, and deployed at sunrise, a bow shot apart. There you go. So when you're playing pitched battle, remember, you're actually playing a scenario, Wayne. Right? Am I right?
Yeah. Whatever.
No. Actually, it goes on for
more 17 years ago, that was true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, now it's not.
No. People don't really count that one. But I actually lie. This is more like 10 pages, this particular one. It goes on for ages, but it's brilliant. It goes on about, proper tactics, what you should be doing, magic item choices, a massive bit about why bigger units are better and all this kind of stuff. So just great. I don't know why. It's hard to describe, and we'll talk about it when we reflect on the current White Dwarf. But it's something I feel missing from White Dwarf is that kind of level of depth that you got on these kind of things. Really,
you mean content?
You call it content, I call it depth. But I mean, if you actually, you'll see in a minute if we read a list of the current White Dwarf we got sitting in front of us. There is a lot in it.
Can I have your comfy chair?
I don't know,
because you seem to be sitting on the fence at the moment. So,
you could say that. We do need to do that. We should start a fund. I reckon we should have a donate button right on the forum that says "Donate for Wayne's chair." I reckon it.
Just buy me one.
Hold on, I'll just dip into my imaginary pot. No, we do need to get Wayne a chair.
No, I'm gonna.
If anyone wants to donate for Wayne's chair. www.heelanhammer/ I haven't put a thing up for it.
A pillow would be nice.
Yeah, pillow or a chair. Get in contact with me if you can do either.
Those memory foam ones, so I can,
if you've got a branded chair and it's your branded chair and you want us to plug your chair and how comfy it is, feel free to send us a sample. We're quite happy to get Wayne to do reviews on chairs. That's fine, or even pillows if you're that way inclined. So, anyway, back to the time tunnel, Wayne. So June 1996 is the other edition which we're going to have a look at. We've got and here you go, rundown again. 40k Stormtrooper rules and fluff. Necromunda Battle Report. For those of you who don't know what Necromunda was, it was an amazing game based in the 40k universe. They all lived in this massive, what is equivalent of a giant, humongous, mega duper skyscraper, and all the rich people lived at the top, and all the little the chavs, as we'd call them now, live at the bottom, and it's all gangs fighting up and brapping each other and stuff in the lower hood. Brilliant game, I loved it.
It's called a Hive, was it?
Yeah, the Hive. Yeah, it was excellent. And like the rich guys would come down and kill for sport and stuff, and they're all super tech equipment. It'd be the equivalent of like, I don't know, the SAS coming down to like superhuman SAS and superheroes coming down to fight like
for a bit of
practice.
practice.
local gangs. Yeah, for a bit of practice. It was really, really good game, full of character. Loved it. But there was a battle report in there about that. Mike McVeigh's awesome Wood Elf diorama. If anyone's ever seen this, you used to be able to see it at Warhammer World Cabinets. I'm not sure if it's still there now. It was Wood Elf Glade Riders riding out to charge down Lichmaster. An article about a 40k player discovering Warhammer and his early experiences, which I thought was a very interesting one. It was again, I don't think you'd read it because it's almost like a 40k player going Warhammer, this is a pile of junk, and then it turns out that he loves it and it's great, but I'm just not sure it's the kind of because it creates
just the way it's worded.
Yeah, because the way it's worded, it kind of creates a little bit of a divide and brings into question. It doesn't make it's not like everything we do is awesome. It's just an honest opinion. The guy wasn't sure about it, got into it, loved it, and they published it. And obviously, it's still good. It still says the game is good, but it was just done in a more balanced, honest way. I suppose is the way. But yeah, so that one was good. We had, for Necromunders, we had Scavies. Now, Scavies were kind of like a mutant, the actual dregs who lived in the special part of the hive that no one lived in, and you got mutated and turned a bit special, really. So before, there was an expansion that included these and the rat skins, which were another group of people in them. But before they did that, it was actually just a supplement in White Dwarf. There were the rules in White Dwarf. And in this particular one, the base Scavvy rules and fluff were in there. FAQs, the actual official Games Workshop FAQs were in this particular issue for the year, and it covered all the game systems. So you had Warhammer Quest ones and everything. They were in the middle of the book. Great stuff. How to make houses. You loved this article, didn't you, Wayne?
Oh, brilliant! Absolutely brilliant. There's the whole. I suppose. I don't know if anyone's seen the old card buildings they used to produce, like Terror Lichmaster and Blood on the Streets and Orcs Drift, and all those scenarios. And they always had card buildings in, but very similar to those. But it shows you how to make them out of foam card and balsa wood, and then paint it up. They look fantastic. They look really, really good. And then the other editions got like how to make fences and all that kind of stuff. And you can read these articles now. It's 17 years old, and you read them now, and they're just as good. And it just makes you want to do scenery. It makes you want to build this stuff because it's not hard to do. I mean, there's a bit of direction there. It shows you what materials you're supposed to use and how to go about it, and it's great, absolutely brilliant. And you just don't get articles like that anymore.
No, I agree with you. You don't, and I think the main reason is it goes back to a sales reason. Why would you want to tell people how to go down B&Q and buy all these hobby materials when you sell a building? A really nice building. Nothing wrong with them. I've got several. But, they made an entire Empire town there, like they have in Warhammer World. You go to Warhammer World and there's a brilliant board that's like an Empire town just sitting there. But yeah, again, you just don't see them. And I don't know if that's a business decision or whether it wouldn't surprise me if it is. That's the feel I get of White Dwarf these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't see them. You had Epic, the game Epic. You had campaign ideas, how to run a link game. There was the invasion of Katajan or something like that they were talking about. Is that how you pronounce it? Is that a bit posh? Katajan? I'd never be accused of sounding posh, but I don't know.
Katajan, I don't know.
No, but anyway. So that they had a story and fluff and rules for a Woody versus VC sort of mini campaign. And again, they were just special rules a guy wrote for a couple of characters he wanted to make up, and he talks about how he came up with them, and that's cool. It just gives you an idea of what you can do. Again, encouraging you to sort of go outside the box and write your own stuff. And an article on dragons. And again, this was linked into the Wood Elf dragon that was released in the same edition. But at the end of the day, it was a complimentary article on the two. It wasn't just this is the best way to get your use out of your Wood Elf dragon. It was here's a dragon. Oh, let's talk about dragons. And it just happened to have. And it wasn't even like the two were they were linked, but it wasn't like there was a picture of the Wood Elf dragon from the new releases, and then the first article next to it on the opposite page was about dragons, right?
Yeah.
So they go together well, so it made sense. But yeah, really good. And again, you look at that list I've just listed off, there was a lot of rules and fluff. Going back with this whole supplement idea, it says at the front of the magazine, Games Workshop, monthly gaming supplement and Citadel Miniatures catalogue, which I can't help feeling is not what the current one what the current one provides. What does the current one say?
It says Games Workshop's monthly magazine, and it's got a list of what's in it. But
yeah,
yeah,
and I think that's the key. It goes back to gaming supplement. I mean, I'm not going to say that.
How many pages is the
It's
the old one.
120 and yours is about 150, the one you've got in your hand, the new one. I counted them myself.
150.
But you look at the two, and I'm not going to sit here and say White Dwarf's always been amazing, because it hasn't. It went through troughs and peaks, the same as everything does, highs and lows. But in current times, let's have a look at the current one. So, Wayne, I've always had let's first sort of qualify this a little bit. I've always had a subscription to White Dwarf. I will always have a subscription to White Dwarf. I don't care. It's just something I'll always do because I like it, and it's just something. And I've enjoyed it a lot over the years. I've got to say, in the last couple of years, I haven't enjoyed it as much, but I still get it, and there's still some good stuff in it. Especially when they first did the revamped new edition, there was almost like there was re-life in it. For me, it's gone downhill a bit now. You're the opposite. You cancelled your subscription, haven't you? You've not renewed.
Yeah, I was going to cancel it, and obviously they had the sort of revamped version. The very first one that came out of the new style, the way it is, I thought, great. This is, it's not as good as it was back in the day, but it's getting there. There was a few more articles in it, a bit more paint and stuff. Really liked the layout of it. I thought, brilliant. This is definitely the way forward. Since that first one, it's gone downhill. This month's one, I mean, obviously, if you're a 40k player and you like Eldar, great, because there's stuff in there. But I always find with the articles, there is no point in buying White Dwarf. You might as well just buy the codex, for the Eldar.
Or look on the web, I suppose. Is
because everything in there, in the same like with let's just say with the High Elves, there was no point buying White Dwarf because everything in the army book is basically they've taken bits of it out and put in White Dwarf. There might be one little thing that's different. There's just there's no point in buying it.
I think that comes down to the key for me is, as I say, I will always have it. I still think it's worth a read, but unfortunately you can read it very quickly a lot of the time, and I don't think you'd come back to it. You wouldn't look to come back to it, whereas I've come back to several of these White Dwarfs from a certain era multiple times, not just because sometimes you want an old school paint scheme, that's just a given, but it's just the rules. If we want to play a quirky scenario, some of the scenarios and the storylines hold the test of time and additions, and you can just alter them to what you want to do, or just you want an idea or a concept for something they're worth reading, or from a tournament organizer perspective, you want to think. You want to look at sort of analyze what you're doing and what is it all about? What should we be writing? You can go back and you can read an article like that one from Jervis Johnson or Nigel Stillman about the core concepts of the game and everything else. And give yourself an idea. So for me, there's always reasons to come back to it. And at the time, forgetting, we're not. I'm not saying that there should be something you want to read in 17 years' time, right? It just happens to be that that's what it is. But at the time, these were major current. When I was playing Warhammer Quest, this sat at our table to play Warhammer Quest.
Yeah.
Or it might have been photocopied. But either way, I needed that to help us play the game. When I played Space Hulk, I probably played those missions at that particular point. So I would have had those missions photocopied for personal use, obviously, next to the game, playing it or whatever. So they were use. I couldn't even tell you. Sometimes, like these are all the old ones I'm picking up now are all in numerical order, nicely catalogued. They have been for years. The new ones will just be lobbed on a pile because I won't need them. I know I won't. Why would I need to go back? Because they're just pretty pictures, a lot of it, and that's a bit flippant to say, White Dwarf's just pretty pictures. But for me, it's just massive text and pretty pictures in terms of actual articles. But if you read yourself, look, I'm going to read you a list here. It actually sounds, if you were to list out what's in White Dwarf, a lot. It says, you got what's going on in the White Dwarf bunker and world. For me, though, that's a bit of I glued some men together. Next, oh yeah, I glued this week. It doesn't tell me anything, right? Yeah. And it's like a bit of a report, sneak peek in Forge World, which is okay. You got something to say on that? You were juggling.
Apart from the pictures, like of seeing, say, someone's army that you haven't seen before. The text is just completely pointless. You just, it's why bother? Yeah. Really, why bother? You might just put their name next to their army, say this is his.
Yeah, because it's almost like descriptions. It's like, this is a unit of Orc boys. It's like, yeah, I could have told you that. And what I want to know is, why did you put that man in there? How have you done the bases? That kind of stuff. That's the stuff I want to know. I don't want to know, oh yeah, okay, this is Nick Baton, who's done it, is a lovely guy. I've spent time talking to him at events and stuff before. He's got his Orc and Goblin army in there, and it is nice. But it doesn't really tell me anything about the concept of what he wanted to achieve when he set out doing it, how he went about doing it, all these key questions, how he did the basing, how he went about, did he layer, did he not, all those kind of army. I want to know how how did you paint the army? What, that kind of stuff isn't asked. It's just, this isn't this giant lovely. Yeah, it's great, and it is.
Have you ever noticed as well? When they do like Nick Baton's got his goblins in it. Shows, and there's actually 2 pages.
Big text, 2 pages.
2 pages, yeah, loads of pictures, but hardly any text at all. About how he painted his goblin skin, right? The only thing is, when you actually look at the pictures of how he did it on the test, and I find this quite a lot with White Dwarf with armies. Yeah.
You're going to say they skip? That it looks like there's another stage.
You look at the way that's done, and then you look at the finished unit, and you think, that's not how it's been done at all, because the unit doesn't look anything like.
No, I know.
The way they've done it on examples.
I find it's that, or we've mentioned it on shows before. Sometimes it looks like there's quite clearly, you can see there's another wash or something before that stage happened, because it's never that neat or whatever. You can see a different
goblins. There's like 4 goblins on one of them, like sort of the old regiment base. Yeah. 4 long.
Well, they're flat colour.
It's got the goblin next to it. Shows how the skin's done, and then you look at the goblins that his finished ones, and then they're not the same at all.
No, you look at like picture 4, and it's quite contrasting and everything else. It's very flat on the models.
And it's very flat on the models.
Yeah.
These things,
What he's saying is that's what he would do now with the current range of paint.
I don't know.
Skill probably, but yeah.
It's always like you said, I didn't get time to do step by step. Can get someone else to do it and just put some pictures in. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, those have mixed reports of painting. I mean, as an experienced gamer, they're never going to be as good. But I think if I was a new or novice gamer looking at these, they would be useful to me. So I always regard those as a good thing. But yeah, I know what you mean, definitely. Elder Battle Report looked great. Battle reports are key. They always have been for a long time in White Dwarf, and long may that continue. I don't really care whether the armies are good or not. I just always remember as a kid reading them and enjoying the kind of the storytelling aspect of it. So, which as a competitive gamer sounds really dirty to repeat that on live on air, but yeah, it was that kind of thing when I was getting into the hobby. You've got Jervis in there. I mean, for me, there's still the best articles in here is Jervis Johnson, Jeremy Vettock, and John Blanche. Just because they've got something to say. It is an article. It's not a picture and a box of text next to it. It is an actual article. So I quite like those, even if for me they're too short. They're 2 pages. I don't want to read 2 pages. I want to read a 6-8 page sort of discussion on something, or someone's thoughts on something. A bit like, I suppose it's kind of like our show, isn't it? Really, we sit here and discuss things for an hour and 45 minutes. And for me, that's just about enough time to talk about what we want to talk about. But if we were doing the White Dwarf 2013 version of that, it'd be a 10-minute show, and some big pictures and a video that you can see. That's the kind of the way it feels to me a little bit. But Jeremy Jervis, brilliant. Love all that. There's Army of the Month, which, as we've already discussed about, is okay. But again, for me, it doesn't ask the right questions. Paint guide on Elder, which again we've talked about, and a Hall of Fame. Now, can we just talk about Hall of Fame briefly, right? Because again, I like White Dwarf, you don't. It might sound like I'm hammering it a bit, but I am. When you compare previous to new, I'm disappointed. But the Hall of Fame,
that's right. Backtrack a bit. I do like White Dwarf, right? I'll always like it, but I'm not prepared to pay
£4.50. I think it's
£4.50 for it anymore. For what I receive for that money, right? I just, I wish, basically, if money didn't matter, then I would have a subscription, because it's quite nice getting something through the door every month that's related to the hobby.
Get your mum to buy it for your birthday. That's what I do.
Mum, or my 10.
That's what I feel like. Mum, my White Dwarf subscription's running out. You need to renew it this year. Yeah.
But I just what's it cost a year? £50, over £50 a year. So. Obviously less than that, because you get a discount, don't you, when you subscribe. But I just can't justify it. I just don't, the amount of the last, I think, 3 that I've had, I've flicked through it. I think the one thing that I liked in recent editions was there was a picture right at the back, which was just some random thing, and it had this guy who'd, I don't know if you remember it. There was just a picture of this guy who'd done a unit of rat ogres. It was a massive unit of rat ogres. It was, I don't know, like 20 rat ogres or whatever. Yeah, and out the whole magazine, I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And that was it. That was it. There was just one little tiny picture at the back of the magazine, and I just thought, I don't need to buy this anymore. It's just pointless.
No, I know what you mean. I do feel like that. As I say, I don't physically pay for it. It's kind of a birthday present. But I understand. And the internet's full of that cost for what you get. But I think it goes back to that value, not value for money. Because if you look at it, it's a brilliantly professional document and really nice to look at. But unfortunately for me, that is kind of all it is, which is enough for some people. Anyway, can we just talk briefly about the Hall of Fame? Because am I the only one that doesn't get the Hall of Fame? Now, we've never really done a kind of a White Dwarfy review, so you've never really heard me. But it's one of the things that I don't really sit on the fence about because I just don't like it. It's like me nominating my favourite model for my Wayne. I'd like to nominate my Screaming Bell today because I really like. No, I'd like to nominate your Screaming Bell, Wayne. You did a really good job there, dude.
Yeah, cheers. You imagine the
Heelanhammer Awards, I'm gonna nominate your Screaming Bell. You did a brilliant job.
Imagine the one with Trish, whatever model she's got there, because she had one of them once. Yeah. But imagine the editor's gone up to some random bloke's gone, you're gonna pick one of Trish's models. He's like, do I have to? Listen,
Brad from accounting.
Yeah, you're gonna pick one of Trish's models and you're gonna write how wonderful it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that. No. If you want to keep your job,
yeah.
you have to tell everyone how nice it is. Okay,
walking through accounting and just picking some random dude. Yeah. Steve from accounting. You'll do something. I need you to stick your name to this.
Yeah,
sign in. No, it's
and be nice and don't mention the hammer.
All jokes aside, I just don't get the idea. What is the idea? They make the models. It's just like me saying, "Yeah, I'm going to nominate myself for an award."
It's very like. We write for White Dwarf and we just like to say how wonderful we are and how wonderful all our sculptors are, which most of them are, right? And how brilliant our models are. And we've got pictures of like all this stuff that we want to sell. So we're going to give you a double page spread of something else we want to sell, even more of.
Now, I've got to say that the only thing that was interesting about this, and it's the only thing that has been interesting about the Hall of Fame, is there was a little tidbit this time round that said about the Grey Seer and the Screaming Bell, and the fact that apparently originally he was going to be like the old one. The Grey Seer was going to be on the platform, but they decided that it was pointed out that he should be higher than a Rat Ogre, so they put him on the top. And there you go, ready to cruise past and drive by from the top of his bell. But I
like the picture of Michael Anderson, who's the guy who's nominated it. His picture looks like, do I really have to do this? It's like they've just asked him, you're going to nominate a model. Oh, do I have to get involved in that Hall of Fame?
Do I have to? But, I mean, the Screaming Bell, as two big fans,
is an awesome model. Yeah, right? It's an amazing model.
All jokes aside, it has got big rims on it, but apart from that, it's there.
And most of them are. I mean, it sounds like we're workshop bashing. The models they produce are phenomenal. You know, when they bring out a bad one, it isn't bad. It's just not as good as when you compare it to the other amazing stuff they've done.
A trainee guy putting his bit in with a lot of superstars. It's just
they are.
It's noticeable when it happens.
What they produce is incredible. It's amazing stuff.
But we don't need a Hall of Fame.
We don't need their own staff to sort of
nominate your own other staff.
There's a certain phrase we could use, but it's a family show, so we can't say that. But they're just patting each other on the back all the time, aren't they? So,
yeah. So Wayne, well, the only thing about it is we were joking about it the other day. It does look like it could be one of those cars, big rims and stuff on it. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, we could have the Pimp My Ride, couldn't we, for the Screaming Bell? Yeah. Put some Giselles on it for the drive-bys, and then you got the hydraulics at the back, so it's bouncing up and down, the street as it's going down.
Driving past all the witch elves on the side.
Put a little pool on the back with some female skaven lounging.
No,
around.
Witch elves, because they're always like witch elves, aren't they?
Witch elves,
You could be driving past like, damn, witch, please. Be quality. Driving along.
Yeah. And because it's stonework, you could spray some graffiti on it, couldn't you? Make it all street.
Street. Oh, yeah. Get a bolter sideways on the guy. Yeah. It'd be brilliant.
Yeah, stick a Glock in the grates in there. Yeah, great stuff.
On street, hood, whatever you want to call it. It'd be brilliant.
And obviously the Gracie would have his hood up.
Yeah, or just a bandana. But yeah, that'd be cool. There you go. You've heard it here first. A conversion idea. Wayne, we should do a paint
the Rat Ogre's got, look, his head's all wrapped up. You could paint that like a bandana, couldn't it?
Yeah, there you go. That's a painted segment right there. We didn't even need to do it. We just done it in the middle of the time tunnel.
That would have been such a better
gangster theme for your Skaven. Yeah. There you go. There's an article, White Dwarf team.
Gangster Bell.
Gangster Bell. That'd be quality. Anyway, sidetracked. Would be interested to hear your thoughts. Actually, no, we wouldn't be interested to hear your thoughts if that was doable. So yeah, it just goes. I think the key for me is in reviewing them is the whole move away from what feels like a supplement to a magazine, which is what it says on the front. So I don't know what else we expect really, but you do look back and I certainly do. I look back fondly on White Dwarfs of old. But that's really the time tunnel for today. As I said, my summary would be: I still buy White Dwarf. I still love White Dwarf. I just don't love it as much as I did. And it's nice to look back and see the opinions when you could see opinions, and you could see you got a bit more of a personal feel, I suppose, to the ivory tower up at, in Nottingham.
It didn't feel in the old articles like it was real. It was gamers writing the articles. Whereas now it is gamers writing the articles, but it doesn't feel like that. Because
it's not about gaming, it's about, it is about gaming, but I really find it hard to put in words. There's a certain feel that it has about it. It's very, probably corporate, I guess is the best way of doing it. But
yeah, very corporate. Whereas the old articles have a very kind of, very, I know I keep saying honest.
But that's the only way. Yeah, that's the feeling you get.
Very honest feel about it. Yeah.
So that's it, really. So that's the time tunnel, and it wouldn't. If we're looking to do this moving on, we wouldn't compare the White Dwarfs. It just happened to be that it was a good way to do it in this particular bit, and sort of make it a 2-in-1 topic.
I was thinking what we could do next time. I've got we could go back to 1986.
Ooh, I like that because I wouldn't have seen those. So yeah. You got White Dwarfs from 1986?
No, but I've got the Citadel
Annual
Compendium or the journals, something like that.
Oh, the journals,
they used to do those.
They did. I remember the journals.
I chucked out I chucked out on White Dwarf. I just didn't have the space for them.
Good.
But the journals and all that kind of like real hobby stuff, I kept all that.
I would like to say as well, if anybody has got any old White Dwarfs that are older than issue 179-ish, they just don't want, we'd love to talk about them on the show. So get in contact with me, basically, and we'd be interested in taking them off your hands, probably just for the show purposes. So if you enjoyed this, please let us know. I'm interested in the feedback from that. So we're going to have a little break, and when we come back, we're going to jump straight into the war room. See you then.
This is the war room.
Okay, so the war room today is not a very long one because we're conscious of time, but I want to talk about a game that myself and Wayne played. So for those of you who haven't heard the war room, this is always something to do with gameplay and strategy and gaming at the sharp end and stuff like that. And we're going to talk about a game myself and Wayne had where we turned up at the club, and we kind of almost self-comp ourselves, don't we? We have some idea of what we're going to do, so we either have we both take like I was doing one of everything Lizardman Army, wasn't I? Or
we just tone it down a bit,
and just try and make a good game out of it. And we didn't really. You picked a list on the day. I picked up my Danish ETC list that I was going to use, and I had already come in my head that I was just going to deploy it and play it like it was at a tournament because I needed the practice, basically. And we hadn't really discussed it, and that's exactly what happened. And we did. I deployed it very, very deep in a corner because you had. You had Ambush and Fleshhounds, which made it worse. I mean, I was always going to deploy in a corner anyway, but it was a proper touching the border, wasn't it, basically? And it didn't go very well for you in the end.
No, I deployed like an idiot, basically, didn't I?
Well, let's talk about this then. So I went, for those, so when you might have heard about it, actually, when we recorded this show the first time, it hadn't. I don't think the show had come out, but Ben Carr at the Bad Dice podcast did a recent Bad Dice Daily on refused flank, which is exactly how I deploy a lot of my armies, which is you only really play in one half of the table, and you deploy tightly in sort of a defensive bubble, if you like, ready to be able to push out, maybe with some distractions over on the right-hand flank if you deploy in the left corner, for example. And that's basically what I did, and the idea was against Wayne's army, you only had one Herald, Gerald the Herald as we called him at the time, and then you just had tons of units, didn't you? And I thought, there's no way I can have Ambush and Fleshhounds coming on behind me. You had 2 units of 6 Screamers. I thought there's no point me moving towards you or trying to front you up in the middle because you'll just get around the sides of me and just cause me a world of problems. So I deployed in a really defensive arc almost. There's a picture on Twitter. Again, I know we're all on Twitter, but if you want to see this kind of thing live when it happens, they're there. And you can always flick through either of our timelines and see pictures and stuff. But so I did that, and you tried to marry my deployment, didn't you?
Considering I had like all the flyers, I should have gone really, really wide, the opposite side, really wide, and played and looked at the kind of sort of turn 3, turn 4 onwards game. And for some reason I didn't. I deployed a lot of my stuff in front of you, thinking I wanted to. But with the flyers, just really, really stupid. Because if I'd have stuck them really wide, you couldn't have really done anything to them until I wanted to get them involved in the game. Whereas where I deployed them in front of you, I had really nowhere to fly them without you being able to charge me or me getting forced into charging you and then just being pointless. Especially like with one-up armor save on Demigriffs and stuff like that. The Screamers, they've got 3 attacks each, they're strength 4, but strength 4 doesn't mean anything against one-up arm saves. So
no, your personal fave.
Yeah. So it's kind of whereas really they needed to be flying over stuff and Even with like the steam tank, because the steam tank's a big problem to hurt in combat. But if I'm flying over, because it's a large target, if I'm flying over and going for the whole D3 wounds, once I've done that a couple of times, then the steam tank's going to struggle, isn't it? Because so that whole do a little bit of damage, and obviously it does affect them. Just set up really, really badly. I mean, literally, we got to end of turn 2, wasn't it? And it was, I hadn't taken all my models off, but I was just about to. It was all over. And most of the damage was just one unit of damage. Just smashed through everything. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was all to do with you tried to try and front up my deployment and double stacked everything, and it meant that I got a 10 charge, I think it was, on a unit of screamers, and you tried your best to counter it with what you had. I got harmonic convergence off, which allowed me to reroll out of 1-up saves I failed, and I basically came out of a massed combat with all my demigriffs, and just there was nothing you could do at that point. Then it was over. So, would you change? Because I don't think it's a great matchup for you with the list you took, because I had literally had all my combat units of 1-up. I had a steam tank, 2 units of demigriffs, and a night bus that all had 1-up saves everywhere. There was hardly any. The only infantry I had was sort of a crossbows, and then I had 2 units of 5 knights as well. I don't know, 1-up saves. So, and you didn't really have anything with any strength. What would you have changed the list? Do you think? I mean, I know you sort of chucked it together, but if you were thinking about a general list to take down the club and pop out against all comers, would you change it after that game or not?
I think for the club in general, I mean, obviously playing against you with proper ETC army and all that, it is a mismatch. I think in general that army is good fun game down the club, because it's not over the top. It's only got the one herald. He's just a level 2 Zench guy.
Let me quickly, just for the listeners, recap then on this. You had a Zench herald in a Zench block. You had demonettes you were trying out for the first time. 5 drones, 2 units of 6 screamers, 2 Slanesh chariots, a Fury unit, the Barat shooting chariot.
Yeah, the burning chariot. I had 2 units of Furies.
And a skull cannon, wasn't it? That was your
skull
list.
Cannon, yeah. That was it.
So sorry, you were saying, for the general down the club, it is quite a nice fun list.
There's lots. I really like the demon list, because there's lots of units. I like all the units pretty much, and they all do something slightly different. And I just think it's really good, really fun to play with. It's amazing how different it is from the old list, because the old list was really boring to play with. But this one, this new one, I think it's great. Really, really good. Brilliant for club games, because the demons are good, but they're not over the top. They're really, as with nearly all the new books that have come out, they're really balanced.
I mean, I don't think you could have not beaten me with that army, but I think it's incredibly hard to get a good result because of the fact you had not a lot that deals with armour. But
I'd have to play real avoidance game.
You'd have to play very defensively in the Reign of Chaos. Wait and try and get as many turns as you could on the Reign of Chaos. See if you can chip away.
One of the turns wasn't. We had one of the combat turns. I rolled the
-1 ward save.
I had -1 ward. So I'm in the combat with demigriffs, and I've got a 6-up ward save. So
it was weird, wasn't it? Because it was a tale of 2 buffs. Because you sort of, I went into 4 demigriffs, I think it was, into 6 screamers. Didn't kill him because obviously there's a lot of wounds there, 5-up wards, all the rest of it. But I got harmonic convergence off. You countercharged with another 6, I think, in the flank. But then in that turn, your ward save went down, didn't it? And instead of holding me and grinding me out, I managed to re-roll out of failed 1-up saves. And then because you had no ward save, just wrecked you, didn't I? And arguably, if those 2 things had been reversed, I hadn't got that spell off, and you hadn't got that ward save, I might have only come out there with a couple of demigriffs, because the way over the 2 rounds, it worked, because harmonic saved me 2 or 3 wounds in the first round with all those strength 4 attacks you had, because you're the same initiative as me. And then when you put a load more in, I re-rolled them again, and I wouldn't have had that. And then your drones probably could have killed the unit off. So it's really weird, wasn't it? It hinged on two sort of small things, but unfortunately that's the fickle worlds of chaos. But I think if you were just going to play that, if we were playing that really competitive and you were at a tournament with that list and you didn't want to change it, I think you'd end up sitting there trying to cast Flickering Fires, sitting there waiting for the Reign of Chaos, trying to see if I'll make a mistake in advancing on you, because you could sit there, because my cannon blew up first turn as well, didn't it? You could have sat there and gone, well, you're not going to get any points off me either then, and we'll see what happens. And then just, like you say, flew around with the flyers trying to chip wounds off things and just seeing what happens. But that's not how you roll, is it? And that's not really a club game. But
I'll play aggressive. I love the screamers, because even though you can play the whole avoidance game with them, you can play aggressive with them if you want to. Because against some things, they're actually, if with the 6, you put them out in one line of 6, fly them into stuff. There's a lot of strength 4 attacks.
They're definitely.
They're actually pretty good. Or you can do the whole flying over stuff, and
and there's still fear causing, which is irritating when you're if they're operating on the flanks, because a lot of flanking units that do suffer from psychology, it's a little bit of a risk charging in there because you just don't know what's going to happen, and there's a hell of a lot of strength 4. So just finishing off this segment then, if as a dock player, what tools do you think you've got you could have done if you were going to tailor your list to beat that empire? What sort of stuff would you put in?
I think you'd need the whole. The Lord of Change with metal.
Yeah. Or even Zinch. Gateway is pretty good itself, but yeah.
I mean, because that would give you the tools to deal with the armor, which would be great against warriors as well. We have warriors of chaos. And anything else with the heavy armor. Because in straight combat, it's difficult. It is difficult. I mean, the plague drones are very good, but it's only because of the mark of Nurgle that it makes you harder for you to kill me.
Well, it just gives you something that stops me from going through you, doesn't it? It's a real anchor.
Yeah.
And if you've managed to chip away, there's a good chance I might not go through you. I've found that because I've played the demons 3 or 4 times now, and normally demigryphs beat you, especially if I get a magic buff off. But if I've not got a full unit, it's an uphill struggle. I have to pass break tests to stay in a lot of the time. So. And that's just from experience. Whether that's statistically correct, I don't know. But in 4 games, that's generally what's happened.
Yeah.
And like you say, you just need to chip away, and then the drones can beat them. And the drones are probably your main combat unit, aren't they, in terms of punch or effectiveness? I thought. But
I want to try out the Bloodthirster. I mean, obviously against a lot of armies now, cannon shots and all that, but I just want to try him out because I just think, because I play so aggressive, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
The problem is, from a tournament gamer's perspective with that, is that I've played with cannons a lot, both with Skaven and now with Empire, and they're actually so unreliable in terms of what they do. But you will have games where they just 6 wound it off. I played Russ Phil at his house at Russhammer 2, as we were calling it. Demon Prince, 1 shot, dead. Chariot dead. But then you'll have games like we did, blow up first turn. You'll have a game where it will hit. I played Brian
the turn after
Demon
your
Prince.
Cannon blew up, my skull cannon blew up.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Story of 2 cannons. I've played Brian the Hobby Killer one time in a Maelstrom practice day, I think, and I shot his Demon Prince for 6 turns and didn't kill it. And so cannons are unreliable, but unfortunately, you will have those games where someone will just 6 wound your first turn and you lose it. But like you, I actually think I still think it's worth running. I don't think it's don't take it because there is cannons. I think, especially when we're playing with composition systems and things, there's a lot less cannons.
Yeah.
Or at least they're slightly.
That's the whole thing, isn't it? Once so with Skaven, once I don't, if I don't take the warp cannon, then I'm regretting it. Or
the A-bomb, as a Skaven player, the A-bomb dies a lot, but sometimes it can just ruin armies single-handedly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's that kind of as soon as you drop it, you realise that it's a mistake because sometimes it's good to just have the threat, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
people will react to you having it.
Well, you think about your Bloodthirster, it's not that expensive, really. If I'm shooting that with my cannons, I'm not shooting your skull cannon. And if you get first turn, your skull cannon can move out from behind a bit of terrain, shoot my cannon. It's the Reign of Chaos kills my cannon. If Slaanesh whispers in my cannon's ear, you're up, aren't you? See you later. In goes my Bloodthirster that can soon kill those demigryphs. So, interesting. But I think the demons have got the tools for a lot of stuff. But high armor is something I don't think they particularly like, but they've definitely got the tools to deal with it. I think
definitely.
And a lot of it's in the Zinch stuff. And so your assessment is correct. I think
the more I look at the Zench, I like the Zench.
Zench and Nurgle mix, I think, is a strong combo.
Yeah.
Definitely a strong combo. I think the Khorne stuff, apart from the Skull Cannon, you won't see loads of. And the Slaanesh stuff's very role specific because, you had the Demonettes, but in your army, if they'd been Nurgle, would have been a completely different world. I couldn't have advanced on them because I've fought that combat 2 or 3 times now as well, and I just don't kill them. Not with the amount of stuff they put out and the damage they don't take.
The Nurgle block is very, very good.
Yeah, it is. So there you go. That's the war room for today. Some thoughts on a game that we played.
Oi, Muppet!
Okay, final segment of the day then, before we get on out of here. I want to do a quick Oi Muppet because it's tradition. This one's about deploying characters, and this came up in our game as well. Especially if you're going to deploy on the board edge, but it's not normally the board edge that causes this problem. It's so you've got your characters out in the middle of the board, as most people do. You bundle all your units on just outside in the middle of the board, on sort of roughly on your half. You're deploying them all. You deployed your bunker, as we call it, your unit of men where your wizards are going to go, or it doesn't have to be. It could be your general and your battle standards. And you've deployed it tightly in with all your other units in a nice neat battle line. Then you got to deploy your characters, and you need to displace the model from the front rank, and he needs to go into his own back rank because it's 2 units so it's 10 wide, 2 deep, say, So it's 20 men. There's a crossbow unit in this example. The man on the corner where you want to put your wizard now needs to make a third rank of 1 man at the back. There's no room because you're going within an inch of a unit, or you're going within an inch of the board edge. The amount of times I've seen it. The same with, if you imagine, if you've got a unit of 5 crossbows and 5 to 10 crossbows, 2 units of 2 ranks of 5. Same deal. Say you have left space, but you're only 5 wide. You put a wizard in there. That man goes to the back. You're now 5 models, and 1 model, and that 1 model can't shoot. So you want to be 6 wide so that when the wizard goes in, you can still shoot the whole unit. It's things like this. Really small margins, but this is what Oi Muppet's about. It's about silly things that you just think, why don't I just put it 6 wide?
You know the third rank of shooting? You half it, don't you?
If it's bows, if it's volley fire, and you don't move.
Yeah. If it's 1 model...
Yeah, it rounds up, I think.
You do round it up, right? Okay.
But I mean, with crossbows, you can't volley anyway. So, but them or handguns,
but
also is a good example.
By guys, if you had just the 1 model, you'd still be able to fire them.
Yeah, if you didn't move. But I mean, still, why would you bother? You just make them 6 wide, unless there's some real space reason. You do it. But
just jumped into my head that whole 1 model. You know, with the whole half shots, would you be able to? Does it round up? Yeah.
But yeah. Very, very interesting, real quick and easy one, but I see it quite a lot. I mean, as Skaven players, we appreciate it, don't it? If you don't think about it early. I mean, you've said to me in the past, you tend to make your units 39 strong or something. So if you know that wizard generally goes in that unit every game, it's 39, so it can't happen. But
characters. When I'm writing lists, characters, I know what units they're going in. So because it's all big blocks and it's pretty tight the way it all goes down anyway. You have to do that. So if I've got a 40 clan rats, and I know there's a warlock going in there, I'll always make it 39.
Yeah,
because you don't want that. You can't afford to have that 1 model at the back.
No,
because it just messes up the whole deployment. Especially if you take like the Screaming Bell. When I had the Screaming Bell and obviously the block of Stormbearer with it in a horde formation, and then the slaves in front. If you actually have the slaves in front as a screen, there is. It literally worked out to the millimetre, didn't it?
Yeah.
If you have it right on the board edge, the bell unit, you've just got enough room to put the slaves in front.
Yeah.
And it has to be in horde for you to do that. Now, if you had suddenly you had that problem with displacing the model with a character, that's it. You can't.
And I've played people that have tried to fudge it around, and they're just like, yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't fit, mate. Mathematically, it doesn't fit. Sorry, you just have to put it somewhere else. And it can really, really ruin you, especially like if you want to be in a unit behind the army. So you used to see it, the old VC list in the 7th edition book in 8th edition was prime example. Graveguard horde, 2 units of ghouls either side of it, and a bunker of skeletons behind. If you had, for some reason, because your skeletons were touching the board edge and you couldn't deploy the vampire in there because you hadn't left room, and you had to deploy them in the graveguard, you wanted to move the graveguard forward, but you wanted to move the vampire back. It's actually, if you think about it, it's hard to do because if you move the vampire first, then the skellies can't move, and then you pushing the graveguard forward, but you want to wait because you want to be in march range of the general. Or if you push the vampire forward, inevitably there'll come a turn when you want to push it all forward, and you can't because one's got to stay put until you've done the character swap. So I don't know if that makes sense to the listeners. It's easily to show you, but just think about it logically. If you've got a character in the front unit, you want to move them in the back unit, and you want to move the whole battle line forward, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about, really. So just bear that in mind. Is leaving space for your characters and the formation you're putting them in, basically, when you're deploying it. And that is Oi Muppet. Okay, very quick beardy weedy week then, Wayne. We've just got time for it. What have you been up
to? I've commission work. Literally, I was hoping to finish it. I was hoping to finish it last week, and then I remembered I had a scrap load. Basically, been working on a load of Ogre Kingdom stuff. So I did like 2 gorges, 4 yetis, 60 nobblers.
Ooh,
yeah, they're all
pain.
The pain, yeah. They're all done, and a scrap launcher, and a giant. I've done a giant. So the scrap launchers, I should finish that tomorrow night. I'm hoping to get it all sent off Monday.
Excellent stuff.
And then that's all my commission stuff done. So I've been beavering away on that because I really don't know what to do for the next project. I've been doing samples like I did a.
You did a dark elf and a high elf. Didn't you?
I did a dark elf assassin, fine cast one. Which I put on Twitter ages ago that I kind of prepped it and sprayed it and all that, but just never got around to putting any paint on it. But I painted that. I was quite happy with it, and then I did a high elf mounted wizard, and I sort of half painted it. I was just trying out different colour schemes and that, and just I was quite pleased with that. I haven't finished him yet, and then I was kind of looking at the Skaven again. I was thinking, I want to add some stuff for the Skaven and do some different, some conversions. And then the Orcs and Goblins, I was thinking, do you know what, I'd quite like to go back to the Orcs and Goblins, maybe to go. So it's just hobby wobbles for the last probably 3 weeks. It's just been, from day to day, I've just been like, I don't really know. So I've just concentrated on the commission stuff, get that all done, get that all sent off, and then when that's done, maybe things will be a bit clearer. They won't be because they never are, No, I change my mind daily. So
it does sound exactly like my week. I mean, I've done loads, absolutely loads, just like you. I've painted nothing, and the hobby wobbles is really the key. I had the same. I've had Empire out in my painting table, off my painting table, in off over the last few weeks. I've had Wood Elves on it. Members of the Saucy section on the forum will know, because they would have seen it on my Dan's Den blog, that it's like, hey, I'm doing this today. Oh, no, now I'm doing this. I've turned into you, right? It's just like random stuff, and I've been quite enjoying it actually. But I'm also conscious that I want to get an 8th edition army finally painted again, ready for the new stuff. I mean, rumour has it that the Lizardman book's coming out soon, but I kind of don't like my Lizardman army anymore. I played it a lot, and the colour scheme and everything and the way I paint has moved on. So I'd like to get that out. But in the end, I decided...
if it's like really kind of changed, it's a really... dynamic change to the way the list works, and suddenly Croc score really, really good, because you've got quite a few of those painted, haven't you? And they're suddenly really good and all that, and it's got a totally different gameplay. That might change your thinking completely.
Yeah, and then I'll probably only need to add a few units and muck around with a few bits. I mean, that's definitely an option, but at the minute, obviously, I don't know what's going to be in a book, if there is a book, so I haven't bothered touching those. I looked at them and thought about it, and I just looked, and the thought of hand painting every single scale, which is what I did in that army on every model, with 3 highlights, just put me off, so I didn't bother. But then I started looking at the photos again, and the stuff I pulled my Skaven out. I started last year, before we paused the show last year. You and me started the 300 points a month thing, and we got up to 500 points, and we were playing 500-point games. I looked at my army and I thought, I really like this. And it's, I just thought, the only army in the entire game where I like the whole model range is the Skaven. No other model range do I like all the models of, except for them. And I thought, you know what, it's going to take me ages, but the way my life is and everything else, it's just going to take ages whatever I do, so I might as well be painting something that I'm going to enjoy. So I've put those back out. But the Empire is still something I want to do. It's just, I'm sort of 50-50 on whether I like playing them. I haven't quite decided. It's an odd one. 1 minute I really enjoy them, and then 1 minute I don't, and then I think, actually, am I enjoying them just because I've won? It's that kind of like, you don't know. There is some fun choices, but I just don't know. The Skaven appealed to me. I liked the way the play style played. I liked the way the rares worked. They're interesting. It's just good fun, and ultimately it was powerful, right? So it helps from tournament play perspective. But it's moving on a bit. I think it's had its time in the sun, and if the game carries on the way it is, they'll find themselves further down the power level. But they're still a good list. They're not died overnight.
You probably see big changes in the way fill their armies. The dynamic of the list has changed. I think that you just have to, don't they? Players have to adapt to the new books coming out.
But I do think I've seen you do it for years. You can do Skaven armies which are fun. They might, they vary, but you can do fun Skaven armies.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's a massive variation
good for
in the
club
list
play.
That you can sort of chop it up and change it around and do stuff with. Definitely, yeah.
Which is good for club play. So I'm thinking, I've just been on that. So that's what I've been on this week. I say this week, I've worked for the last 12 days, and I've been starting at 7 and getting home late. So I've barely done anything. But in front of us is I have built 15 slaves based, painted, sprayed, ready to paint. So I've done something, and you never know, I might be able to touch them at some point this weekend. So there you go. That's what I've been doing, really. Skaven, and I've been playing Warhammer. And of course, just very, very quick mention, Warhammer Quest has come out in the app, and you long-term listeners have probably heard me mention it over the years. I loved Warhammer Quest. It was brilliant. And the app, we might touch on it in the next episode maybe, but I'm sure other podcasts will have already done it by the time we get around to it. But it is just a reproduction of the game on the iPad. It's brilliant, so addictive. So I might lose a bit of time every 5 minutes I'm on the toilet or whatever. That might be it might be cruising around a dungeon. Give me something to do. So that's good. So that's it really, our Beady Weedy Weeks. Is there anything you want to say on that, Wayne?
So if you put on Twitter, I'm cruising around a dungeon, I know where you are.
You know where I am, exactly. That's normally when I'm tweeting. So there you go. It's about the only time I get in the day, to myself. Right, end of the show then, peeps. Thanks first off for all you listeners for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Let us know whether you liked the time tunnel. We enjoyed doing it. as I say, it won't always be a comparison with the current White Dwarf. It was just 2 topics rolled into one. I want you to remember our sponsor, oldgames.co.uk, for all your hobby needs. They're obviously the place to go if you need to get on with some hobby stuff, especially magnetic basing kits and all that kind of thing. If you're into card games, board games, they've got a lot. Have a check. If they can't get it, email them. They probably can get it from somewhere. We've got the Saucy section, which is the primary way you can support us. We get a lot of emails asking, how do we support the show? We love your stuff, all that kind of thing. It is just sign up, get yourself some free content. I mean, there's basically been 2 shows a month since we rebooted going up on there. There's another one this week. There's one of the best shows I think we've ever done, which is when we had the Point Hammered guys over here in Heelanhammer Studios. It had a lot of editing and a lot of beeps and stuff to try and take out some of the language, but ultimately it's probably the most risque type of podcast we've done, and there's some classic parts in it from Wayne and the boys there, so definitely check that out. It's just £9 a year at the minute. It's half price, and it really does help us with the hosting costs. I mean, anybody who's run a podcast will tell you there's not a massive cost of upkeeping, but there is quite a bit, and if you want it to sound good, we dropped 2k on kit to get back into it, so we need to sort of recoup this, and this is the best way. It helps you, helps us. So thanks very much for all those people that have already signed up, and please, if you're even half thinking about it, just do it. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, if you're a smoker, it's 2 packets of fags, and it's not a massive amount of money to keep us rolling. The forum is free on the majority. It's only the Saucy section, which is the bit that you need to pay for. The rest of it is free. Sign up, and if you do sign up, email me and I'll activate your account. Just email me with your username, because otherwise you'll get caught up with all the spammers. Twitter, as we've spoken about multiple times before on this show, is the place to be if you want to follow us live. I forgot that at the beginning of the show. How did I forget that? Live stuff.
It's been bliss.
And it actually is live. We always tweet about our games. Wayne tweets pictures of what he's been up to and all the rest of it. So that's the place. I am at Heelanhammer, surprisingly enough, and Wayne is at WayneKemp13. Listener questions. We're still interested in hearing your listener questions, especially if you have been hobby heroing it up with I want to say Coven Throne, but I mean Blood Throne. If you've been playing with the Blood Throne, we want to see your stories, pictures, want to know how he's getting on, what he's killed, tales from the fireside, the lot. That's what we want. Finally, iTunes reviews. It's still very important for the show that we move back up, especially after we had obviously a break. We've dived down the iTunes chart, and new prospective listeners will probably miss our lovely show if we don't raise it up. So if you do download this through iTunes, or if you've got an iTunes account, please do go on there and give us a good review if you like us, and it'll help us move the show up, and we'd really appreciate it. That's it really, Wayne. Have you got anything else to say?
No, I think you've done that beautifully.
Good. Well, make sure you tell your friends, Gaming Club, if you've got blogs, anything you can put our name on, please do. I always feel a bit guilty about posting it up on random forums, because there's a lot of podcasts these days, and I'd imagine as a forum regular, if you're just like, there's more podcasts been posted, I know it's there, if you do listen to them. So but please, if you can help us by putting it in your signature or on your blogs or whatever, or just mentioning us, if you do a roundup of what's going on in the hobby or something you've listened to this week, please mention us. We're always interested to read feedback. So that's it really, guys. Thanks once again for listening to us. Hopefully you've enjoyed the episode, and myself and the Wayne will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.